Welcome to Retirement Done Right with your hosts, David Rath and Pat Kalish, where we talk about retirement, Social Security, taxes, estate planning, wealth planning, and more. Now, onto the show.
Is your investment portfolio in need of a tune-up? Today, we're going to be discussing 3 areas of concern that I've personally come across in just the last few months as I'm reviewing incoming prospect portfolios. I hesitate to use the word red flag because that implies that something incorrect or wrong has been done to that client. I would maybe more term these as yellow flags, something to review. Again, you want to make sure that your investments are working as hard as possible for you. So I'm going to identify 3 things that if you're looking at your statement, you might be able to point this out. If you're unsure, always bring in the help of a professional, maybe not the person that put you into these products, somebody to take a look at your investments to make sure that they are working as hard as possible for you. Number 1, A-share mutual funds. These are pretty easy to identify if you're looking at your statement. You can see the letter A after the fund name. These have been around for a very long time, although they're a lot less common than they used to be. A-shares refer to the commission structure for that fund in particular. They are charged a commission on the front end. So a good example would be if you invested $100 into a fund, typically after the commission is paid to the advisor, you now have $95 or somewhere around that in your investment account. So it is an upfront cost to the client. The advisor gets paid on it. And then there are typically trailing commissions that are built into that fund structure. These were commonplace in decades past as that was the primary way of getting people invested. Advisors acted a little bit more like salespeople than they do today. Today, the industry has shifted much more to an advice-driven model where you're paying a fee for the advice and the management of your money instead of paying a commission for buying an investment product. There are 2 scenarios in which this could be a problem. The first is that the advisor or investment salesperson sold you this fund and you may or may not have heard from that person again. So of course, if you are looking for advice, you're probably going to have to go somewhere else in order to gather that advice. If you are in regular contact with the advisor who placed you in this fund, they should probably be looking for a cheaper version of that fund to convert you to. What I mean by that is that typically if they are charging for the ongoing advice or ongoing management of your account, there should be investor share classes or other share classes that are available to you that you can be moved to that typically carry a lower expense ratio than the A-share fund. If it is the second case and the advisor likes that fund and they've found the cheapest version of that fund for you, that's great. They should continue placing you in or keeping you in that product that they believe in because maybe they know the management team and they've done the due diligence in order to ensure that you are being placed in the best-in-class solution for you. If the advisor is holding onto that fund because it's in an investment account that is taxable and the fund has accumulated capital gains throughout the year, again, there should be some due diligence done to make sure that you are in the cheapest version of the fund that is available to you. If you are currently being placed in A-share funds, chances are you probably want to be looking for another advisor. At the end of the day, the question on your mind should be, what are you paying and what are you receiving in return? If you're dealing with just a salesperson that is placing you in these products and receiving a commission up front for it, chances are they have some ulterior motives. Number 2, annuities in an IRA. Let me explain why this could be an issue. First, annuities are typically sold as a way to gain tax deferral status for a portion of investor money. IRAs, the accounts themselves, are tax deferred by their very nature. So if you put a tax deferred annuity into a tax deferred IRA, you're not getting a double tax deferred benefit. You're still getting the tax deferral. Chances are the annuity that you got placed into gave the advisor that put you into it a nice commission check up front, and there could be some better options for you as investments in the IRA. Now, before I have every annuity salesperson come after me for the reasons why you can place an annuity into an IRA, I understand there are some benefits to annuities that IRA might be the best source of funds for that client at that particular moment. However, It is a flag that I will constantly look for if I'm reviewing a prospect portfolio. So if you see an annuity in your IRA, go to your advisor. Ask them a very specific question. Why do I hold this annuity? And what are the benefits that I'm receiving for holding this annuity in an already tax-deferred vehicle like an IRA? Number 3, seeing a conflict of interest by an investment advisor working for maybe a larger corporation, or maybe they have a relationship with a larger holding company, and you are placed into a specific fund that might not be the best solution for you, but because there is a relationship between your advisor and whomever they work for, you got placed in that investment. This one might be harder to identify. If you're looking at your statement, it's pretty easy to see if there's a fund that ends in the letter A, as we talked about with the first point. You might not know of a conflict of interest that exists between the advisor whom you're working with and the parent company or the powers that be above that advisor. In a recent example, I came across a client portfolio who was working with an advisor at the local bank. The biggest fund in this client's account was managed by the parent company of that same bank. Now you have to ask yourself, is this the best option for that particular client? Or I would assume for a lot of the clients working with that bank. I looked at the performance. The performance was trailing its benchmark over the last 10 years. The expense ratio was much higher than a simple index fund tracking that same benchmark. So you have to ask the question, was the client's best interest in mind when they were placed in that particular investment? In a case like that, the best question to ask, if you weren't working for this particular institution, is this still the best fund option for me? Chances are, I would say otherwise. So to summarize, none of these things mean that anything has been done incorrectly. It just means that you should be asking some further questions. If you don't know which questions to ask, borrow some questions from the video. Maybe get the opinion of an outside investment professional. Get the questions to bring back to your advisor. If they don't have great answers for you, chances are you should be looking elsewhere for somebody to take care of your money.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Retirement Done Right. To learn more, visit us at contwealth.com.